There is a song that every Indian born between 1980 and 2000 can sing from memory. All of it, without warning, without trying. Years later, decades later, ask them anywhere in the world, at any moment, and they will begin. Zungo zungo bachali hai, pata chala hai. Their faces change when they hear it. Something happens to them that doesn't have a name in English, but that Hindi calls yaad. Memory, but warmer than that word implies. Memory with feelings still in it. This is the story of how that song was made. How it nearly wasn't made. And how a word that Doordarshan tried to ban became the most recalled line in Indian children's television history. To understand what it meant for the Jungle Book to air on Doordarshan in 1993, you have to understand what Doordarshan was. Doordarshan was not just a television channel. It was the only television channel. For more than 30 years, if you wanted to watch television in India, you watched Doordarshan. It had the entirety of the nation's television watching attention. By 1990, Doordarshan reached 90% of India's households, approximately 130 million homes. The 1987 Ramayana, broadcast on Sunday mornings, was reportedly watched by 650 million people, something close to 80% of the entire country at the time. Streets emptied. Temples installed television sets for collective viewing. There was no internet. There was no cable. There was no choice. When Doordarshan aired something, India watched it. The satellite revolution was coming. Zee TV launched in October 1992. Star TV followed. But satellite television in 1993 was still primarily an urban upper-middle-class phenomenon, requiring a dish, a subscription, money. The vast majority of India's television households were still watching Doordarshan. The Jungle Book arrived on DD National in late 1993, Sunday mornings. Into the last years of the monopoly. Into the last era in which one show could genuinely, simultaneously reach every television-watching child in India at the same moment. India would never have this again. After satellite television fragmented the audience, there would never be another show that an entire generation of Indian children watched together, in real time, week after week. The Jungle Book was one of the last great shared childhood television experiences in Indian history. And it chose to be about a boy who couldn't decide whether he belonged in the jungle or the village. The Jungle Book was dubbed into Hindi by the National Film Development Corporation of India, the same NFDC that had produced Shyam Benegal's films, that had championed art cinema, that was the institutional guardian of Indian film culture. The NFDC's involvement was not accidental. They saw in this Japanese anime, with its Kipling story set in central India, something that could be genuinely Indian, if given the right voice. The Hindi dubbing localized the names Sher Khan, Balu, Bagheera. Words that slid into Hindi naturally, that sounded like they had always been there. The jungles of Seoni, already described by Kipling in loving detail, felt even more present and immediate in Hindi. The Wainganga River that Kipling had named without visiting became, in the Hindi version, a river that Indian children felt they knew. The theme song was an emergency. Someone had dropped out at the last minute. Gulzar, poet, lyricist, filmmaker, was called. He needed a composer. He called Vishal Bhardwaj. Gulzar was 58 years old in 1992. He had written the lyrics for some of the most beloved songs in Indian cinema, Mera Kuch Salman, Tir Bina Zindagi, Aap Ki Aankhan Main, Do Naina, or Ek Kahani. He had directed films. He had won awards. He was a figure of national cultural stature. Vishal Bhardwaj was, in 1992, largely unknown. He was a young musician with talent and ambition and very few credits. He was the one who was called when a more established composer dropped out of a children's cartoon theme. That is how careers begin. They met on Sunday. Bhardwaj played. Gulzar wrote. The brief was simple, a theme song for a Japanese anime about a boy raised by wolves in central India, translated into Hindi, airing on Doordarshan. Something children would remember. Something that captured Mowgli. Gulzar is, among his many gifts, a writer who thinks in images rather than ideas. The image he found for Mowgli was this: a small boy, barely dressed, in a jungle that loves him. A flower blooming in its natural soil. Chaddi Standoff hai. Wearing his shorts, he bloomed like a flower. It is one of the great opening images of Indian popular song, precise, visual, tender, and completely original. The full refrain was, Jungle bot chali hai, pada chela hai / ar chadi pehen ko full kila hai. News is spreading through the jungle. It has come to light / wearing his shorts. The flower has bloomed. In the Indian poetic tradition, comparing a child to a flower is not unusual. But doing it with this combination, the jungle gossip, the small boy in his underwear, the act of blooming, creates something entirely new. It is funny and tender and beautiful at the same time. Only Gulzar. They recorded on Monday. A group of child singers. The lead voice, Amol Sahdev, a child whose voice caught the playful, slightly mischievous energy of the song perfectly. By Tuesday morning, it was done. Tuesday evening, the song came back.
Doordarshan had listened.
They had feedback. The word chaddi, shorts, underwear, they felt inappropriate. Please change it to pant or lungi. Gulzar's response has become one of the most celebrated anecdotes in Indian film culture. He told Doordarshan, Gandagi tumher dimag mein hai or koi problem nahi hai. The filth is in your mind. There is no other problem. Mowgli wears shorts. He looks like a flower. If your mind makes something else of that, that is your mind's problem. He told them, either the song goes with Chaddi, or it does not go at all. Doordarshan broadcast the song with Chaddi intact. For 30 years since, that word has been the first word that comes to mind when Indians of a certain generation hear the song's opening notes. And then Gulzar gave Bhardwaj something more than a credit. He gave him a career. The Jungle Book collaboration led to Gulzar directing Montage in 1996 and choosing Bhardwaj to compose the score. Montage was a critical revelation. It launched Bhardwaj's career. He went on to direct Maqbool, Omkara, Kamini, Haider, a body of work that places him among the finest filmmakers of his generation. All of it traces back to a Sunday afternoon in 1992, an emergency phone call, and a word that Doordarshan thought was improper. Sunday mornings in India in 1993. The household wakes early, not for work, but for this. Children in pajamas, sometimes still sleepy, positioned in front of the television set. In joint families, which was the norm, not the exception, in India at this time, grandparents might be there too. Parents making chai in the kitchen, one ear on the television. The Jungle Book came on, and that song began. Over weeks and months, it became a ritual. Children knew every word. Children who had never been to a jungle, who lived in Delhi apartments or Chennai colonies or Kolkata flats, sang about a boy running through the forests of Sioni as if those forests were their own. The show's Indianness, the names, the settings, the language, made Mowgli feel not like a foreign character, but like someone from their own stories. A character from the neighborhood. The show also introduced something that Indian children's television had not consistently provided before, a hero with genuine moral complexity. Mowgli in the 1989 anime is not always right. He makes mistakes. He loses his temper.
He feels shame.
He is afraid. He does not always know what to do. He is, in other words, a child, which made him more believable, more beloved, and more instructive than any number of flawlessly heroic characters. The show's message about conservation was equally without moralizing. Kichi the red panda's parents had been killed by hunters. Mowgli loved his jungle and his animals. The show did not deliver lectures. It delivered attachment, and attachment is the beginning of all protection. By the mid-1990s, satellite television was fragmenting the Indian audience.
J. Star.
Then Sony in 1995. The Sunday morning ritual was beginning to have competition. By the late 1990s, Cartoon Network would arrive and change everything again. The Jungle Books moment, that particular, unrepeatable moment of monopoly reach, had passed. But the song had already embedded itself. It was already in the generation. It had already become what Amrita Pandey, vice president of Disney India, would call in 2016 the childhood anthem of everyone in the 90s generation, a song every Indian knows, loves, and remembers. Not the show, necessarily. The song. Specifically that word, Chaddi. Specifically Gulzar's refusal. Specifically Mowgli blooming like a flower in a jungle in Seoni that a Nobel Prize-winning Englishman imagined from Vermont. 23 years after they first made the song in 3 days, Gulzar and Vishal Bhardwaj sat down in a recording studio again. Disney India had asked them to remake it for the 2016 Jon Favreau Jungle Book, with Priyanka Chopra and Irfan Khan and Om Puri lending their voices to the Hindi version. Bhardwaj said, "We could never have imagined how popular it would be. After 23 years, it's been an absolute delight to revisit the song." Gulzar Saab's lyrics are as stunning as ever. He is truly at his best when he writes for kids. One could say that Gulzar Saab is, in fact, the oldest kid in the film industry. The song was the same. The word was still Chaddi. In episode 4, we trace the full 130-year journey of adaptations, from the first film ever made from Kipling's stories in 1937, to the Soviet animated classic most Indians never saw, to the film Walt Disney was working on when he died, to the 2018 Netflix version directed by the man who brought Gollum to life.